Hello, and welcome to today's episode brought to you by Holy Reads, the world's first Christian book summary app. With Holy Reads, you can discover more powerful insights and summaries from 1,000 plus Christian books in under 20 minutes, whether you want to read or listen. I'm your host, Michael, and today we're diving into the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. This book is both humorous and serious, exploring how subtle temptations can divert us from a life centered on God. Lewis's approach gives us insight into the mind of temptation, showing us how small compromises can lead us away from our faith. The Screwtape Letters is a fictional account of a senior devil, Screwtape, advising his younger nephew, Wormwood, on how to tempt a human away from following Christ. Lewis presents this advice through letters that highlight the strategies and subtleties involved in leading people astray. The book begins by reminding readers of two common errors regarding the devil: to dismiss him as imaginary or to become overly obsessed with him. In truth, both extremes are dangerous, and Lewis's work is a witty but sharp critique of how often we fail to see the real nature of temptation. At the heart of the Screwtape Letters is a question for each of us. What are the things that distract us from living an abundant Christian life? The strategies Lewis describes are timeless, exploring how both personal and social temptations can keep us from a true, deep faith. Through this unique framework, he challenges us to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves in recognizing and resisting temptation. One of the primary insights from the Screwtape Letters is that temptations are seldom bold or dramatic. Instead, they are subtle and gradual, pulling us away from God in small, seemingly insignificant steps. Screwtape advises Wormwood to encourage his patient to live a watered-down version of Christianity, one that looks comfortable but lacks conviction. For example, he suggests turning the man's attention to petty criticisms of others in church, sowing seeds of judgment and pride. This, Screwtape assures Wormwood, will lead the man to focus on the flaws of others rather than his own spiritual growth. Lewis uses Screwtape's letters to show that one of the greatest temptations today is to regard the church as merely a human institution. When we see the church only as a flawed organization filled with imperfect people, it becomes easy to distance ourselves from it or approach it with a critical, detached spirit. This approach risks undermining our connection to the body of Christ, forgetting that the church, despite its flaws, is a divine creation meant to bring us closer to God. Screwtape also instructs Wormwood to use distractions, especially those that pull people away from living in the present. He warns that humans are tempted to dwell on the future, often worrying about things they cannot control. By keeping the man's mind occupied with fears about what might happen, Screwtape can prevent him from experiencing God in the here and now. Living in the present, Screwtape argues, connects people to God's eternity, while preoccupations with the future or the past pull them away from a divine relationship. Screwtape goes on to say that another distraction is focusing on the man's feelings. Wormwood is advised to encourage his patient to evaluate the quality of his prayers based on how they make him feel. If he doesn't feel courageous after praying for courage or forgiven after asking for forgiveness, he might come to believe his prayers were ineffective. By tying faith to feelings, Screwtape can lead the man to trust in his own emotions instead of in God. Lewis tackles the topic of humility through Screwtape's advice on fostering pride disguised as humility. Screwtape suggests making the man self-conscious about his humility, prompting him to feel proud that he's humble. This twisted version of humility keeps him focused on himself, detracting from true self-forgetfulness that is part of a genuine relationship with God. In one of the letters, Screwtape writes that it's not the great sins that often lead people away from God, but the everyday vices. The gradual path to separation from God is usually paved with small, seemingly harmless distractions and indulgences. Screwtape encourages Wormwood to make his patient focus on outward appearances and actions, paying attention to the faults of others while minimizing his own. Screwtape also critiques the modern attitude of being spiritual but not religious. He encourages Wormwood to guide his patient toward an individualistic approach to faith, where church attendance and community become unnecessary. By isolating him from fellow believers, Wormwood can lead his patient into a version of Christianity that centers only on personal spirituality and minimizes the importance of communal worship and accountability. For Screwtape, isolating Christians is key. Without the support of other believers, the patient becomes more susceptible to temptation. Lewis's point here is that faith is not meant to be a solo journey. The church, despite its imperfections, is a means of grace, a place where believers learn, grow, and support one another. By diminishing the church's importance, Screwtape can make his patient feel spiritually independent, while in reality drawing him further from God. In another letter, Screwtape advises Wormwood to encourage his patient to adopt a flexible approach to morality. This temptation is particularly potent in a society that increasingly values personal freedom and subjective truth. Screwtape argues that moral relativism, viewing Christian morality as restrictive or puritanical, allows people to justify their behavior based on individual feelings rather than objective truth. By blurring the lines between right and wrong, Wormwood can make his patient feel justified in making decisions that, over time, lead him away from God. Screwtape also suggests shifting the man's focus towards social causes over personal virtue. When the man begins to associate his faith with political or social activism rather than personal transformation, Wormwood can lead him into a faith that serves a worldly end instead of a divine one. This, Screwtape argues, is an effective way to make the man's faith look relevant while keeping him from true discipleship. A recurring theme in the Screwtape letters is the role of unchecked desires and appetites. Screwtape encourages Wormwood to tempt his patient toward pleasures that are good in themselves but can become sinful if misused. For example, the desire for food or drink is not sinful, but gluttony is. Screwtape explains that overindulgence can lead to selfishness, where the man demands everything to be just as he likes it, affecting those around him. Screwtape also advises Wormwood to use romantic love as a temptation. He suggests encouraging the man to view marriage as an institution based solely on falling in love. By romanticizing love in this way, Screwtape can create unrealistic expectations that lead to disappointment, division, and ultimately a breakdown in the marriage. For Lewis, this shows that even good things, if not approached with wisdom and temperance, can be twisted to lead us away from God's intended design. Idolatry is another tactic Screwtape discusses. Humans are easily tempted to make idols of things they value highly, even things that seem good. Screwtape advises Wormwood to encourage his patient to prioritize something, whether it's work, relationships, or even his country, above God. By making this new priority the center of his life, the man will unknowingly shift his devotion away from God. One of Screwtape's goals is to make his patient view his faith as a means to support other goals, such as personal success or social justice. By making faith serve these secondary causes, the patient risks turning God into a tool rather than the center of his life. Lewis's message is clear. When anything other than God becomes our ultimate priority, we fall into idolatry and our faith becomes weakened. In the closing letters, Screwtape discusses the nature of true joy. He laments that genuine joy is one of God's gifts, a state of being that demons can neither understand nor provide. Real joy, he notes, comes from self-forgetfulness, from being fully present in the moment and open to God's love. For Screwtape, joy is something to be avoided because it draws people closer to God, reminding them of His goodness and grace. The letters remind us that true virtue is found not in grand gestures or spiritual accomplishments, but in the small, consistent acts of love, kindness, and humility that draw us closer to God. Screwtape despises these small virtues as they build habits of goodness that slowly but surely anchor the soul in God. In the Screwtape Letters, Lewis emphasizes that the Christian journey is not easy. It's filled with challenges, distractions, and temptations that test our faith. But through Screwtape's cynical advice, we see that each challenge is also an opportunity for growth. Every temptation resisted strengthens our connection to God, reinforcing our commitment to live a life that honors Him. For Lewis, the Christian life is about daily choices that shape our character. The way we respond to each temptation, big or small, determines our spiritual direction. The Screwtape Letters serves as a reminder to stay vigilant, to be aware of the subtle influences that might pull us away from God, and to remember that we are not alone in our struggles. Thank you for joining us in this exploration of the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. His insights reveal the subtle ways temptation can work in our lives, helping us recognize the importance of humility, faith, and resilience in our walk with Christ. This podcast was brought to you by Holy Reads, the world's first Christian book summary app. If you enjoyed this episode, download Holy Reads to discover more powerful insights and summaries from 1,000-plus Christian books. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more reflections and book summaries to guide your faith journey. Until next time, may you walk wisely and stay vigilant in your faith.